She was pregnant. So was I. One of us was carrying his future. The other was carrying his mistake. I stood in that parking garage, purse in hand, heart full of certainty I was saving him. He whispered to me every night, "She's a trap. She manipulates me. I never wanted that baby." So I did what he couldn't. I walked up to his wife, and I delivered his message myself. But here's what I didn't know. Every word Richard ever told me was a lie designed to make me do exactly what I did. And the man I thought I was freeing, he was already building the case to bury me. I thought love was about fighting for the person you want. I thought strength meant doing what weak people couldn't face. I thought I was his partner, his future, his correction. What I actually was his alibi. By the time I understood that I was in handcuffs, he was in his office calling his lawyer, and she, the woman I knocked to the ground, she was sitting at his desk, running his company, raising his daughter. Without him, when someone uses your love as a weapon, you don't feel used. You feel chosen. That's the most dangerous part. If this story made you feel something, anger, pity, or something you can't quite name, drop it in the comments. And if you want to know how Emma turned her worst nightmare into her most powerful chapter, stay right here. Subscribe so you never miss the stories that tell the truth about love, betrayal, and survival.
I pushed her. One firm shove against the car. Her body was clumsy, unbalanced by its burden. She fell. Her hands flew out to shield her belly, a final futile gesture of a losing battle. The sound of her scraping against the concrete was satisfying. She lay there, a broken doll, crying for her unborn accessory. This was necessary. This was clarity. "Perhaps now you will listen," I said calmly. I smoothed my blazer, restoring my own perfect order. "Richard is with me." My voice was a final verdict. He does not belong with a woman who cannot even stand up for herself. I turned and walked away. The click of my heels echoed my victory. She was just a mess on the floor. I left her there. In my mind, I was already walking toward my new life with the man she had tried to steal from me. This was the only way. He was too kind to do it himself. I drove, the city lights blurring past my window. My hands were steady on the wheel. There was no shaking. There was no regret. There was only the clean, sharp feeling of a problem being solved. He needed a partner, not a parasite. He needed someone who would fight for him, for them. I was that person. Emma was a relic of a life he never wanted, a mistake he was too honorable to correct. I was his correction. I was his future. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were clear. My expression was firm. I looked like a woman who knew what she wanted, and I looked like a woman who got it. This was not cruelty. This was love. It was the kind of love that cleanses, the kind that burns away the past. I considered the security cameras in the garage. A flicker of concern, maybe. But it vanished. What would they see? A woman falling, an unfortunate accident. Richard would handle it. He would protect me. He always did. He chose me because I am strong. He chose me because I am not like her. My confidence was a shield. The world could watch. It did not matter. The only thing that mattered was that the message had been delivered. Richard would soon be free. Our life could finally begin, unburdened by her sad, clinging presence. I parked in my own reserved spot. Everything in my life was earned. It was all in its proper place. Unlike hers. Her world was collapsing, just as it should. This was an act of mercy. Richard was weak, but I was not. I stood behind the concrete pillar, feeling its cold certainty. He wanted this. He needed me to do what he could not. She was a trap, a cage of flesh and obligation he was desperate to escape. When I saw her waddle from the building, her belly a monument to his mistake, my resolve hardened. This was not for me. This was for us, for the future he promised me in quiet, desperate whispers. She was the only thing standing in the way. I would move her. I stepped out. Her face, a mask of dull surprise, twisted when she saw me. The words I spoke were not mine. They were his truths, sharpened into daggers. My purse felt heavy in my hand, a solid weight of purpose. It connected with a soft thud. It was a message, not a blow. When she stumbled, I gave her a firm push, a final correction. The ground met her with a sound I chose to ignore. I had done what was necessary. The path was clear now. Richard was free. His words echoed in my mind. He had told me everything. How she used her condition to manipulate him. The financial trap he was caught in. Every complaint, every sigh of despair was a secret request. He was asking me to be strong for both of us. He called her paranoid. He blamed her hormones. It was a clever lie we both understood, a performance for a dying marriage. I was simply ending the show. She refused to take her cue, so I had to draw the curtain myself. Now the play could finally be over. I walked away without looking back. There was nothing more to see. The problem had been addressed. I felt a strange calm settle over me, a clean sense of accomplishment. She was a chapter I had just closed. Richard would be grateful. He would see that I was the one who truly fought for our future. I did not feel guilt. I felt a cold, clean power. She had made a terrible mistake, thinking a baby could hold a man who did not want to be held. She had underestimated me. I was his true partner, the one willing to get her hands dirty. He would understand that this was a demonstration of my love, of my commitment. He was a good man trapped by a bad situation. I was his rescuer. People like her, they use weakness as a weapon. They use sentimentality as a shield. I simply refused to play her game. She thought she was building a family, but she was building a prison, and I had just handed her the key. Nobody would stand in my way. Nobody. This had to be done cleanly. I stared out at the city, a kingdom I had built from nothing. Everything required precision, a business deal, a product launch, an extraction from a dying marriage. Vanessa was passionate, I knew that. Her little confrontation in the parking garage was clumsy, unnecessary, but I understood the impulse. She was protecting our future, our real family. Emma was a problem to be managed now, a line item in a ledger that needed to be closed out. Her feelings were a temporary expense. I would handle it all after the baby. A girl was born. My lawyer had been clear about the timing. It was about favorable terms. It was about protecting my assets. It was just business. Vanessa knew that. She understood ambition. A call came from my phone, the insurance company, an emergency room visit, a complication, an unscheduled withdrawal from my carefully managed account. This was drama. This was exactly the kind of mess I was trying to avoid. I took a deep breath. Anger was a useless tool. Cold calculation was what built empires. This was just a minor market fluctuation, a small fire to be put out before it spread. She was fine. I was sure, just emotional. When did it end? It had been a slow decline. The joy faded around the 4th month. After we learned it would not be a son, I saw a future I did not want, a life of quiet compromises. He stopped touching my belly, she would say. I stopped seeing a legacy. I saw an obligation. The late nights at the office became a refuge. The business trips became an escape. The restaurant where I met Vanessa became the place where I started building my real life. Her brother was a blunt instrument, a security guard. He saw shadows everywhere. Let him watch. He could not see the truth, that some things are meant to end, that evolution requires leaving the past behind. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I needed to call her, to control the narrative before it could spin away from me. This was about damage control, a small public relations crisis. I would be calm. I would be reasonable. I would remind her of her place. I imagined the security footage. An angry woman, a clumsy encounter. Nothing more. Nothing that a good lawyer could not frame properly. They think they have a weapon. They only have a blurry picture. The phone call began. I accused her first. Always seize the offensive. It puts them on the defensive. Her voice was thin, fragile. She claimed Vanessa attacked her. A ridiculous story. I chose my words carefully. Protect the future, defend Vanessa, discredit the past. I painted a picture of a clumsy fall, an unfortunate accident. Pregnancy makes women unstable. I thought of Vanessa, strong and focused. She was pregnant with my son. That was a fact. Emma and her daughter were a fiction I was erasing. I needed to see the footage, not to see what happened. I needed to know what they had on me. I needed to measure the threat. Emma and I replayed the scene. Vanessa was waiting. She looked impatient. She aimed for the stomach, a primitive, desperate move. She was not as smart as I thought. After, she fixed her hair, a small, telling detail. This was not an act of passion. It was an act of war, a poorly planned one, but a war nonetheless. This was not just anger. Emma was finally seeing it. This was a plan, aggravated assault, a felony. Her brother was feeding her these words, turning a domestic issue into a criminal one. I felt a surge of cold fury. I gave her everything, a beautiful home, a life of comfort, and this is how she repaid me, by trying to destroy me, by siding with him against me. My wife did not want our child. Her mistress did. The situation was so simple, so clear, and yet she insisted on making it complicated. Her husband was building a new life, as he should. That is what successful men do. They upgrade, they improve. The phone rang. It was my name on her screen. She let her brother show her. A little power play. I would allow it. Let her feel in control for a moment. She answered. Her voice was different. Not broken, not crying. It was cold, empty. I was speaking to a stranger. Then she said the words, "I am changing the locks." A foolish, empty threat. You cannot change the locks on my house. The words came out before I could stop them. A crack in my composure. She saw it. I heard it in her silence. She said, "Watch me." And then she was gone. The line was dead. The silence in my office was absolute. My own fury was a reflection in the dark glass of the window. She thought she could push me. She thought she could just take what was mine. She was being dramatic. Vanessa had told me what happened. A brief argument. Nothing more. He said it finally. "We will not, because you are not coming home." I was locked out of my own life. It was a declaration of war. That was fine. I knew how to fight. I was done being a victim of her emotions. She made her choice when she allied with that brother of hers. Now I would make mine. I needed my lawyer. I needed to protect what I had built. The security footage was a problem. But every problem has a price. Every person has a weakness. I would find theirs. This was my city, my company, my life. She had no idea who she was fighting. Richard James Morrison. I sat in my office, on the 32nd floor, and I watched my city lights blink on. My phone would not stop ringing. The insurance company, my mother, Patricia Morrison. She heard everything. My world was not crumbling. It was being tested. It was being purified by fire. I would burn away the parts that made me weak, and I would emerge stronger. I was doing the right thing. This had to be done. It was the only way. I made my face a mask of panic as I entered Richard's building. Every detail was planned. The slightly smeared makeup, the tremble in my hands. He needed to see a victim. He needed to see a woman in distress, a woman who needed his protection. This was for our future. He just did not know it yet. A necessary cruelty to carve out the life we deserved. Emma was an obstacle, a temporary problem that required a permanent solution. I stepped into his office. He looked at me, his face a canvas of concern. Perfect. Richard, thank God, I whispered. My voice was a flawless instrument of fear. I rushed to him, seeking an embrace that was both a comfort and a cage. I had him. Are you all right? He asked. His hands were steady on my arms. I let my eyes widen, filling them with manufactured horror. She fell. Emma just fell. He repeated her lie, her pathetic little story. She said you pushed her. The accusation hung in the air. I let the shock register. Pushed her? Richard, never. I would never harm her. I was only trying to make her see the truth. Our love was real. Her marriage was a sham. She refused to listen. She became a screaming, clawing animal. I told him how she lost her balance, how she stumbled in her rage. My voice cracked at just the right moment. A masterful performance. I explained how I tried to help, how she screamed for me to stay away. I gave her space. It was the merciful thing to do. This story was better. This story he could believe. Relief washed over his face. I saw it instantly. He wanted to believe me. He needed to believe me. Emma was emotional, unstable. Everyone knew what pregnancy did to a woman's mind. His own mother had filled his head with those convenient truths. She called the police, he said. His eyes searched mine for a crack in the story. I allowed my skin to go pale. The police, a complication but manageable. Why? It was an accident. I did not touch her. She claimed I used my purse. How absurd, how common. I moved closer, my voice a soft, pleading whisper that unraveled him. Richard, you know me. I am not a monster. I sank into his arms, his scent a familiar comfort. He chose me. He always chose me. The ambitious one. The exciting one. The one who understood his world. I know, he said into my hair. The words were a victory. She is just blaming someone for her own mistake. He believed it completely. Now for the final move. The one that would secure everything. I pulled back, my eyes shimmering with tears. I did not feel. There is something else, Richard. Something you must know. A lovely chill seemed to crawl over him. What is it? I took a breath. I am pregnant. His mind stopped. I could see it in his eyes, the world tilted on its axis. Pregnant. 2 of us. How long? He asked. 10 weeks. I only just found out for sure. I watched him, my heart a steady, patient drum. This could be perfect for us, I urged. A new start, the family we always wanted. He collapsed into his chair. He was processing. He was seeing the walls close in around him. Richard? My voice was a fragile thing. Say something. His silence was a dangerous void. I do not know what to say. This changes everything. But it did not. It simply made things clearer. You are already leaving her, I reminded him gently. Your lawyer said to wait. Now we have a reason to act. His eyes narrowed. What plans? I had said too much. I corrected course smoothly. I just meant our plans, to be together, to stop hiding. Now 2 babies were coming. It was time to make our union official. I need time to think, he said. Of course he did. But Richard, there is one more thing. Emma knows. She knows about us. She knows about the baby. We had to be careful. His phone buzzed. A message. I watched his face darken. His blood pressure rose. I could almost feel the heat from his skin. What is it? I asked, feigning innocence. Emma. She has changed the locks. A perfect, beautiful move. My satisfaction was a brief, warm glow. I quickly hid behind a mask of concern. She cannot do that. It is your house. He corrected me. Technically, it is our house. He began to pace. He was a caged animal. The police, the locks, he saw it as a messy scandal. I saw it as an opportunity. Maybe she wants this, I said, my voice quiet and thoughtful. If she makes you look bad, she gets more money in a divorce. I planted the seed. Let him believe she was the calculating one. He stopped moving. The idea took root. Emma playing a game. Emma being strategic. You might be right, he said. He was finally seeing her clearly. I walked to the window. It was time for another truth, a carefully edited truth. When I was with her, in the garage, she said things about your money, about the business. I paused. It sounded like she has been looking through your records. His focus sharpened. What things? I gave him just enough. Names of restaurants we visited, charges from our trips. She has details, Richard. Someone is helping her. The chill he felt was real. I could see it. Evidence. Divorce proceedings. The affair documented. He was trapped. Emma was no longer a hormonal wife. She was an enemy. I need to call my lawyer, he said. A predictable response. That is smart, I agreed. Then I played my final card. I turned from the window, my expression grave. My condition, this pregnancy. If this becomes a public fight, the stress could harm the baby. His baby, our baby. His protective instincts flared. This child was different. This was his future. This was his real life. I will not let that happen, he said, his voice hard. I will handle Emma. His promise was my victory. I smiled, letting a cold edge show for just a moment. I know you will. You always protect the people you love. As I left, I felt no guilt. Only a quiet sense of order being restored. He would handle it. He would fix it. He would clear the path for us. He did not yet see the truth. That our meeting in the garage was no accident. That Emma did not simply fall. He pushed the thought away. He had to. He loved me. I was carrying his child. He would never believe I could hurt someone. He would never believe I could lie. He stood at his window, blind to the storm I had created. He thought he was missing a small piece of a puzzle. He had no idea the entire picture was a lie. Downstairs, a man was watching a video that would destroy everything. But Richard did not know that. Not yet. For now, he was safe inside my story, a world where his mistress was innocent and his wife was a monster. That world would burn soon enough. I could picture the police station, the sterile room, the detective with her tired professional eyes, Lisa Reynolds. I imagined her watching the footage, seeing a simple crime. She would call it an attack. Attempted harm. She would see premeditation. She would see a level of cruelty that she thought she understood. But she did not understand anything. She did not understand necessity. She did not see the art in it. She would ask Emma to tell her story, to walk her through the events one more time. I could hear Emma's voice in my head, telling them about her doctor's visit, her pathetic little details about the baby's position. She would talk about feeling good, about grace. She even named it. How sentimental, how weak. Her hand would go to her belly, a gesture of protection that failed. She would describe the parking garage, level 2, section C. She would say she heard her name, and she would say she recognized the voice, my voice. The voice that promised to fix everything. The voice that delivered a harsh but necessary truth. She was in the way, and things that are in the way must be moved. The story was already forming in my head. A private conversation, a misunderstanding. She became hysterical. Hormones, you know. I was only trying to speak with her reasonably. She lunged at me. I was defending myself. The details about the divorce, were not threats. They were facts. I was trying to help her see the truth of her situation. She was delusional, trapped in a fantasy. I was simply delivering a dose of reality. It was a kindness in its own way. The police report would be my word against hers. She said he never wanted it. A moment of anger. An unfortunate accident. I would express profound regret. I would explain how the conversation escalated beyond my control. Her pregnancy made her unstable, volatile. I will watch the footage and see a woman who was provoked. I will see myself trying to reason with someone beyond reason. This was not a plan. It was a tragedy, an outburst I could not prevent. I knew her schedule. It was not stalking. It was research. I had to ensure we could speak privately, away from prying eyes. For her, dignity as much as mine. The timing was perfect, because I made it perfect. It showed foresight, not malice. My presence there was a sign of my seriousness, of my dedication to resolving this mess with as little drama as possible. I came prepared for a conversation. She was the one who turned it into a confrontation. My body was calm, because my purpose was clear. This was not impulse. It was the execution of a necessary decision. That purse was merely an accessory. The intent was to communicate, not to harm. Its weight is an irrelevant detail. I wanted her to understand the finality of the situation. After she fell, there was nothing left to say. The message had been delivered. I did not show concern because the matter was settled. I simply adjusted my coat and left. The job was done. The scene. This was a necessary step. I watched them from my window, their uniforms, a dark stain on my perfect day. They moved with a purpose that felt like an accusation, but I felt no remorse. It was not an accident. It was a correction. I had simply removed an obstacle. My unborn child deserved a clear path, a life without complications. Emma was a complication. Had Richard seen the video? I hope not. He would not understand the pressure I was under. He would see only chaos, not the clean, simple logic of my actions. I called him the moment it was done. I told him she fell, that I tried to help her. He believed me. He always believes me. The detective would be here soon. I would tell him the same story, my version of events. It was the only version that mattered now. It had to be. Aggravated assault. The words echoed in the sterile room. Felony. It sounded so ugly, so undeserved. A wave of cold anger washed over me, not for what I did, but for being caught. This was her fault. Emma's fault for fighting back, for turning this into a spectacle. My lawyer would handle it. He would paint the picture for them. The unstable wife, the jealous pregnant woman seeking attention. It was not a lie. It was simply the truth they were not yet willing to see. I looked past the detective, out the window. Richard was my biggest problem now. He was supposed to protect me. He promised me a life free of this kind of mess. I learned today what I was capable of. Now he would learn it too. And my Richard? How would he react? He would panic. He would try to fix it. He would hire the best lawyers money could buy. He would shield me from all of this. He had to. I was carrying his son. Emma would try to make me the villain, of course. She was good at that, playing the victim. But her performance was over. I was done letting her define my future. My safety and my son's welfare were the only things that mattered now. The officer stood up. They were taking me in. A formality. I would sign some papers. Richard would have me out within the hour. I had the security footage. I knew it looked bad, but feelings were more important than facts, and I knew Richard's feelings. I knew about her doctor's appointments. Of course I knew. Knowledge is a weapon. I never asked Richard for the schedule. He would have refused. So I found it myself. I watched her. It was necessary. I had to understand her patterns, her weaknesses. Her life was an open book. and I was a dedicated reader. My phone was a key, our shared accounts, the insurance portals. He made it so easy. Richard did not help me plan. He did not need to know the details. He just needed to want the outcome. And he did. I called my lawyer from the car. We needed to move quickly. We had to control the story. If they knew I was watching her, they would call it something ugly. I called it survival. My marriage was finally beginning. This was not about an affair. This was about building a new life, a better life. She had to be removed from the equation. The thought of harm to her unborn child was a clinical one, a regrettable but necessary risk. For the first time, I did not feel helpless. I felt powerful. I had a plan. She would learn that attacking my future would destroy her own. 2 babies, 2 women, 1 man who made a promise to me. I watched his office building from my car. It had been 6 hours. 6 hours since they put me in a cold room. Richard's response was perfect. Denial, anger, a call to his lawyer. I was sure he wanted to do this. He had to. We could not wait. Time was an enemy now. I needed to see his face when he tried to lie to me. I needed to hear him justify his weakness. My hand rested on my belly, a silent promise to my son. I needed him to know why his mother knew everything. My phone buzzed. Jimmy Thompson, a name from Richard's past. Bail was posted 2 hours ago. My lawyer was already at work. Unstable pregnant woman. Fabricating evidence. The words were a shield. Of course they were. What else did he find? Phone records? Of course she had them. I called Richard every day. Sometimes more. The day she fell, I called him right away. I was worried. About him. About us. And? My lawyer hesitated. There was something else. A deeper check. They knew about my specialist. My own pregnancy was not perfect. Not like hers. High risk. Complications. Stress was a poison. The irony was bitter. I had to avoid physical exertion. So she was risking my pregnancy by existing, by being in my way. This was not about competition. It was about desperation. I was willing to risk everything for my baby's health. She was a threat to it. The puzzle was complete now. Jake, her brother, would not understand. I wanted to talk to her. I had to. Not alone. With my lawyer. In a public place. I needed her to understand what she had done. I needed to see the fear in her eyes. I was not thinking clearly. That is what they all thought. They saw trauma. I saw clarity. For 8 months, I had been patient. I listened to his excuses. I believed his promises. I tried to be the perfect partner. Today I learned that while I waited, she was a lingering threat. She was planning to ruin everything. So I want to look her in the eye. I want to ask her why she refused to disappear. I want to understand how someone could be so selfish. How they could think their happiness mattered more than my son's life. And I want her to know that I will not go away. He was quiet. He was weighing the risks. My lawyer agreed. Controlled, public, recording. The moment she showed any aggression, we would leave. Agreed. I would not engage. No emotional manipulation, no justifications. I was not looking for her forgiveness. I was looking for weakness. I wanted to know what Richard told her. About me, about our future. Knowledge is power. 20 minutes later, I was there. Her brother had chosen the location. Security cameras, witnesses, exits. He had his own man at a corner table. I arrived exactly on time. I looked shaken. It was part of the performance. My designer handbag was in my hand, the same one, a reminder of what was at stake. Emma, I said. I slid into the booth. I am surprised you wanted to meet. I am surprised you are not in a cell, I thought. Her composure was irritating. That is a misunderstanding, I said. My lawyer is confident. Security footage can be wrong. Can it? Her brother spoke. His voice was cold. I watched footage of you targeting my sister's pregnant belly. A 3-pound handbag. It seems very clear to me. I looked at him. A new threat. And you are? Jake Carter, Emma's brother. The security company that provided the footage. The color left my face. You work in security? I am security, he said. We protect people. His smile was a weapon. People like pregnant women who get attacked in parking garages. I turned back to Emma. She was the weaker one. Emma, I never intended for you to get hurt. Things got out of hand. Did they? Her voice was steady. It was unnerving. You mentioned details. Richard's divorce plans. Too specific to be a guess. I do not know what you mean. You said his lawyer advised him to wait. You knew his business trips, his spending, his feelings. That is not pillow talk, Vanessa. That is a battle plan. I shifted in my seat. Richard and I discuss everything. We have no secrets. Us both. This was the only way forward. My marriage was a cage. That was the simple truth. Emma had changed. She had once been my partner, my equal. Now her world had shrunk to one single, suffocating obsession. She did not see my ambition anymore. The business was just a noise to her. She wanted a house with a fence, a life I never promised. I felt the walls closing in. Each word from her was a brick. Each day was a sentence. I was not attacking her life. I was trying to save my own. I was building something real. I was saving my own soul. She needed to see that clinging to our dead marriage was hopeless. My heart belonged to someone else now. It belonged to Vanessa and to our child. Our child. The words felt clean. They felt right. Vanessa carried my future, a child I wanted, a child we had chosen together. It was a foundation, not a trap, a deliberate choice, not an accident. When did we plan this? The question was irrelevant. The universe provided an answer when I needed it most. It was complicated only to those who could not see the grander design. Emma was the past. I had to focus on the future she tried to poison. She believed my new life was some petty response to her own choices, a reaction to a future she had forced upon me. But it was not about her. Vanessa and I found each other months ago. Our child was conceived 10 weeks ago. Emma's pregnancy was 31 weeks along. She saw it as a timeline of betrayal. I saw it as a path to liberation. My real life was finally beginning. Jake could stare all he wanted. His judgment meant nothing. Timing is everything, he might say. He was right. It was time for me to be happy. It was my turn. This was not an alternative family. It was my only family. Emma simply did not understand. She does not understand love. She thinks it is about sacrifice and duty. Vanessa knows it is about power and survival. Our life together was something to be fought for. Emma's pregnancy was a complication, a problem to be solved, and Emma called her a monster for trying to solve it. How could she understand? To build something beautiful, sometimes you must clear away the rubble. It was not murder she was thinking of. It was freedom. She was fighting for me. She was fighting for the life we both deserve to have. I heard about the scene she made. It was passion, not madness. Other people would never get it. They would stare from their small, safe lives. I hope her child understands her delusions, that one day it would ask why its mother was so weak, why she tried to trap a man who did not love her. The word prison echoed in my mind. For what? Conspiracy? It was absurd. I never told Vanessa to do anything. She acted on her own. Emma's threat was empty, cold. I did not give Vanessa her schedule. I did not give her my blessing. She was an intelligent woman. She took initiative. She was protecting our investment. As I watched the news reports, I felt nothing but irritation. She had been clumsy. She had been caught. 4 years of my life. Wasted. I was about to be a father to a child I never wanted. A reminder of a past I was escaping. But that was fine. I would be fine without them. It was time to show Emma what I was truly made of. I sat in my office at 3 in the morning. These monitors were my eyes, my kingdom. I had spent 4 hours looking for any weakness, not in my life, but in the company's security. The irony was rich. I hired her brother to protect my assets. He was good, meticulous, and now he was a problem I had to manage. My empire was built on control. Every camera, every password was mine. This information was my power. Jimmy called me over. He found something in the numbers. He called it unfaithful. He called it embezzlement. I called it business. The spreadsheet showed my life for the past 8 months. Dinners with Vanessa were client meetings. Hotel rooms were strategy sessions. Her medical care was a corporate wellness expense. The numbers were large. $250,000, a rounding error, the cost of doing business. It was my company, my money. The cards paid for her apartment, her car, her clothes, the tools she needed to be the partner of a man like me. That handbag was an investment. This was a necessary cost of business, a strategic investment. It was not cheating, it was the price of my own freedom. The board would never understand. I had earned this. I deserved this. Vanessa needed to know things to protect our future. How could I not tell her about Emma's schedule? It was simple risk management. Providing information was not a crime. It was a kindness, a way to ensure Vanessa was safe, that we were safe. My anger was a cold, hard thing, a tool for strategic planning. These were just pieces on a board. One package for the law, one for the company, one for the divorce. It was a neat, clean severing of ties. It was what had to be done. There was no other way. This path had become unavoidable. There was another problem. The child. I had to consider every possibility. Researching paternity was not an act of cruelty. It was due diligence. I had to protect my assets, to guard against future complications. I looked at the screen and saw a way out. Emma had changed. This was not the woman I married. This was not my life. It did not matter what I knew. It mattered what could be proven. Doubt was a powerful weapon, a tool to reduce my liabilities. A consultation summary appeared on the screen. The lawyer's advice was clear. Infidelity, paternity questions, these were the keys to financial survival. I was not setting Emma up. I was simply positioning myself as the injured party, which I was. I was the one who was trapped. Everything had a purpose, a place in the plan. The timing was perfect. After the birth, the divorce filing would begin. I would claim she was unstable during her pregnancy. I would suggest the child might not be mine. It was a clean exit with minimal financial loss. Then I could start again with Vanessa. I leaned back, admiring the shape of my strategy. It was not just about the affair. It was a careful campaign to protect my future, to ensure my own security, to finally separate myself from her and the child she was carrying. There was one more detail, one more cold piece of logic. The notes mentioned a way to simplify everything, a way to remove the largest obstacle. The proceedings would be much simpler. My lawyer was thorough. She explained that if Emma lost the pregnancy, the entire process would be streamlined. Did she recommend it? No. She simply outlined scenarios. She discussed advantageous factors. The loss of the pregnancy was listed, a factor that would benefit my position. I stood and walked around my office. This was a mission, a complex operation. I did not ask Vanessa to do anything. I only supported her. I provided her with a schedule. I discussed the legal benefits of a cleaner divorce. I gave financial support to a woman who understood my situation. That does not make me a criminal. It makes me a man trying to escape, a man who was finally taking control of his own life. Everything would be handled. I had lawyers, I had money, I had a plan. My backups had backups. I would send my own packages to the right people at the right time. That fool Jake Morrison thought he was playing a game with me. He did not understand the board. He did not understand the players. I remember seeing her in the kitchen that night. She was making tea in the middle of the night, a hand resting on her stomach. She was talking to the baby I never wanted, the complication I had to remove. Then the phone rang. Detective Reynolds. He had received a package. He said we needed to talk. I knew nothing. This changed nothing. We were not looking at anything serious. This was a domestic dispute, nothing more. There was no coordination. There was no premeditation. Morrison and Hoffman were just two people in a difficult situation. There would be no federal charges. This was all a misunderstanding. What did they need from me? They needed to understand this would become a circus, that Emma would face scrutiny. Was I prepared? I looked at the thought of her on a stand, her weakness on display for everyone to see. The detective said my sister had survived so much. Betrayal, attack, discovery. He thought she could handle the media. I knew better. And me? What about me? This would expose my role. It would invite accusations. They would call it entrapment, invasion of privacy. I had legitimate contracts with those buildings. I hired Jake to protect my interests. I thought he was documenting threats against me. Everything he gathered must be illegal. It had to be. My lawyer would make it disappear. Then I heard Vanessa's claim. She said Emma provoked the attack. She said Emma threatened her pregnancy, that she was defending her own baby. A perfect defense. It was brilliant. It painted Emma as the aggressor, the unstable woman who attacked her husband's pregnant mistress. It was the truth, or at least, it was a version of the truth that would set me free. Did they have evidence? None. But I had expensive lawyers. I had motivation. This was a fight I could win. I thought about all the trouble Emma had caused, the complicated divorce, the coming child, the life she was trying to force on me. She deserved a fight. She deserved to spend the next year battling these lies in a courtroom. Then the detective spoke again. He said he had more evidence. Evidence that would make our defense impossible. What kind of evidence? The kind that showed I knew. The kind that showed I encouraged it. The kind that showed I had discussed the legal benefits of a pregnancy loss with my attorney. There was a very long silence. He could not have that. That conversation was privileged. If he had that, we were not talking about assault anymore. We were talking about something much worse. I knew what they would call it. The question was, would they prosecute a man like me? A millionaire with the best lawyers money could buy. He said he would prosecute anyone. His bank account did not matter. I knew he was wrong. I was Richard Morrison. Money bought everything. It bought safety. It bought silence. It bought protection. As the call ended, I thought of her house. Her world was going to change, but I would be fine. I had made only one mistake in my perfect plan. I had hired the wrong man to guard my secrets. Those records were my story, not a secret. They were about to be used against me. Surprised to see me, he asked. I looked up from my screen. Jake Carter, my head of security. It was 8:30 in the morning. Reporters were already calling about Vanessa. The last thing I needed was some minor security briefing. Jake, this can wait. I have a family matter to handle. He told me his business was my family matter. He closed the door. He locked it. He asked to sit down. His voice was different now. Cold. All the polite deference was gone. This was not my employee anymore. What is this about? I sat across from Jake. His desk, my company. He pulled out a tablet. 8 months of my life on a small screen. Surveillance, financials, electronic communications, all painting a picture he did not understand. I had no idea what he was talking about. I said the words, but they felt hollow. He tapped the screen. The main monitor lit up. Vanessa and me. The Marriott, downtown. March 15th, a business expense, a client meeting that never happened. I stared at the screen. My mind was a blank. Jake, I can explain. He said he had 7 more. More hotels, restaurants, appointments, even her apartment lease. $250,000. The screen switched to a spreadsheet. Every charge listed in perfect detail. My world began to fracture. How did he get this? These records were sealed, not in a building under his contract. His smile was a knife. He said that was not the most interesting part. The screen changed again. Our emails. I watched in horror as my own words became evidence. Words meant for one person, now displayed for everyone. Emma's appointment is Thursday at 2:30, Memorial Medical Center, Level 2 parking. He read it out loud. She usually takes 45 minutes and always parks in Section C. That was my email. To Vanessa. From last week. This was a cleansing. A necessary cut to save the whole. Emma's brother stood before me. A blunt instrument of a man. His words were poison. He called my planning an attack. He called my wife his sister. The connection clicked into place, cold and sharp. His eyes held a crude violence I despised. He spoke of destruction, of embezzlement. He misunderstood everything. This was not destruction. It was a strategic reorganization of my life. I had to protect my assets, my future. He said I conspired. I never did. He showed me notes from my lawyer. Just due diligence. Exploring all outcomes is just smart business. He mentioned Vanessa. He tied her to Emma's schedule. This brute could never understand the complexities. He only saw a fight. His words were a cage, built from my own cautious planning. I told him my legal discussions were private. He claimed criminality broke that privacy. He was larger than I remembered. A simple man using simple intimidation. He accused me of hiring Vanessa to remove obstacles, an ugly way to phrase it. She was supposed to be a solution, not a problem. I never told her to harm Emma. Never. Then he showed me the text. The words stared back. He knows about us. Handle it. Sent in a moment of pure panic. A desperate move. I meant for her to talk, to de-escalate, to manage the issue. That is what I meant. He twisted it into something monstrous. He said Vanessa saw it as permission. Then he mentioned Emma's call from the hospital. I had to protect myself then too. I chose Vanessa. That made me part of it. The intercom buzzed. My assistant. There were people here to see me. Urgent. I looked at Jake. He checked his watch. He looked satisfied. He had timed this perfectly. Let them in. His voice was loud. The door opened. Detective Reynolds, 2 officers, and 3 others. Federal agents, Richard James Morrison, the detective said. You are under arrest. Conspiracy to commit assault. Embezzlement. Accessory to attempted harm of an unborn child. He read the words. They were just sounds. This was not happening. This was a betrayal. It was Jake's fault. It was all Jake's fault, model. I saw the officers behind him, and the whole thing snapped into focus. This was a setup, a carefully laid trap. He had been planning this the entire time. He called it protecting Emma. I called it a coup. He was just security. He was supposed to follow my orders, not create evidence against me. One of the men stepped forward. He spoke of federal jurisdiction and warrants. It was all a blur of legal threats. The cold metal of the cuffs felt unreal. Panic surged. Emma, the company. I created all of this. Without me, she would have nothing. The business would collapse. She would lose everything. I tried to make him see, but his face was stone. He said she would be fine. He said she had a brother who cared. He accused me of wanting her, and the baby gone for money. A grotesque simplification. They led me to the door. I turned back, a final appeal to reason. The company needs a leader. The company is me. He said the board had already voted. My stomach dropped. Emergency management. Employment terminated. Assets revoked. Stock options frozen. Impossible. They could not do that. I did nothing wrong. It was my company. He told me the board had seen his evidence. He called me a thief, a criminal. He said I was bad for business. As the elevator doors loomed, a final cold thought surfaced. He was never just security. I asked him. For the first time, the brute smiled. The smile was a victory lap. No, Richard, he was her brother. He was there to protect his sister from men like me. The doors slid shut, trapping me with his triumphant face burned into my mind. It was all personal, a family vendetta masked as corporate justice. I leaned against the cold metal wall of the elevator. My life was being dismantled floor by floor. Down there, Emma was probably waiting. Not my wife, my executioner. She must have known. This whole performance was for her. I had spent months trying to build a new life. Her brother spent those same months tearing mine apart. She was not the victim. She was the weapon he used to destroy me, she and her child. This was a necessary purge, a cleansing. They sat there, a jury of fools, believing they understood sacrifice. My company, my creation. I built Morrison Tech from nothing. Now, they stared at me from across my own table. That empty chair at its head was an insult, a pathetic attempt to unmake me. Then I saw Emma. Her performance was flawless. The concerned wife, the mother-to-be, hand resting on her swollen stomach. A perfect picture of innocence. It was a lie. This was not justice. This was a coup, orchestrated by her. Thomas Bradley, a man who built nothing, prepared to speak. This was my company. I would remind them. Then the puppet began his show, this so-called consultant Jake. He stood there as if he held some great truth. He spoke of my work, my life. He twisted everything into something ugly. 8 months of careful planning, he called it a crime. Every expense was a necessity, a tool to keep this company afloat. The $257,432 was money I had earned. It was a fraction of what I was owed. The affair was a brief escape from the pressure they could never comprehend. Her expenses were a small price for my sanity, for the survival of this firm. He even mentioned the handbag, the weapon. A board member, Jessica, raised her hand. She asked about liability, a practical question. Her brother, the expert, explained how I used company resources. He claimed I gave Vanessa the information. He said this created a liability for Morrison Tech. The room went cold. They saw the danger. They saw a lawsuit that could bleed them dry. But the brother was clever. He offered them an escape. He said my wife had no intention of suing. There was a condition. The board had to take appropriate action, a threat wrapped in a promise. They looked at me not as their leader, but as a problem to be solved. Thomas Bradley turned to her. He asked my wife to speak. She stood up, using her back for support. Theatrics. Every move was calculated to show her fragility, but her voice was not fragile. It was cold, hard. She spoke of our marriage, of the man she thought I was. She talked about company functions and my reputation. Every word was a knife. She looked at the faces around the table, our friends, our colleagues. She told them when she discovered the affair. She said she only learned of the financial theft yesterday. Then she delivered the final blow. She spoke of the attack. My unborn child, she said, the true scope of my betrayal. The silence in the room was absolute. She recited the numbers again. $250,000. She said I used corporate resources to hurt a pregnant woman. Her. I was only removing the dead weight that held my future back. They called her my mistress. I called her my partner. Now Emma stands before them all. She speaks of my sins. She does not mention my sacrifice. My company has good people because I hired them. It has a future because I built it. One man's vision is not selfishness. It is leadership. Walsh leans in, listening to the lies. Emma wants to thrive without me. She wants to undo my work. She talks of integrity. She, who is stealing my life's work, Bradley, the old fool, agrees with her. They ask what she wants. She will spare the company I built, in exchange for my complete ruin. The board members look at each other. They see a simple way out of a problem. They do not see the betrayal. David Kim, ever the coward, questions her resolve. Then her lawyer speaks. She promises to protect Morrison Tech from me, as if I were the threat. They will cooperate to see me in a cage. They will sell my holdings. My assets are frozen. They believe they have already won. They cannot take what is mine, model. This room was my creation. Every polished surface, every chair, I built it all for them. Now they use it to condemn me. These were my friends, my allies. I made sacrifices they could never understand. For the good of the company, for all of us. Thomas calls it embezzlement. I call it necessary investment. They see conspiracy. I see strategic protection of our assets. Their small minds are tangled in morality. They cannot see the larger picture. I was saving us from ruin. Then I see Emma, my wife. She stands with them, not with me. I ask what she wants, as if I have not given her everything. She speaks of repayment, of prosecution. She wants me away from our daughter. From my daughter. I try to reason with her, to remind her of our life, the life I built. She calls it a lie, a world she merely lived in. But it was real. It was our success. She is simply too weak to understand the cost of greatness. Thomas stands. He speaks of vision. He lists my sins like a cheap novel. They will take their chances, the fools. They will burn without me. Emma is there. I look at her one last time. I tell her I never meant for Vanessa to cause her harm. It is the truth. I only wanted a clean solution, a simple exit. She looks at me with pity. That is the cruelest cut. She says I only regret being caught. Perhaps she is right. The plan was flawless. The execution was not. This was a necessary cut. I watched the doors seal them inside my world, a world I built. They believed they were purging a sickness. I knew I was the one performing the surgery. It was for the company. It was always for the company. Emma sat there, her face a mask of fragile strength. Jake, the viper I had once called a friend, was beside her. Even my own board, men I had made wealthy, chose this little drama over loyalty. This was not an ending. It was a cleansing. I had to protect my creation from her emotional storms. Then Thomas Bradley spoke. He offered her a place. In my company. It was not a job offer. It was a declaration of war. A consulting role, he called it. An insult. My knowledge, my vision, was what mattered. They were replacing me with a ghost. A woman who had not worked in 4 years. She was a mother, not a leader. She knew nothing of the inside. I was the inside. She understood the clients because I brought them in. She knew the culture because I created it. They said she showed leadership. I saw a well-rehearsed performance. Jake whispered his poison into her ear. He always resented my success. Emma was never the brains. She was the brake. She pointed to her stomach. The baby. Always the excuse. She could not handle a demanding schedule. Of course not. Then Jessica Walsh, my own hire, offered her a throne she could rule from home. They were giving her my kingdom. They called it project management and strategic planning. They called it intelligence. I called it theft. Her brother nodded. He was encouraging her to pick the bones of my life. Financial independence, he called it. He meant a final betrayal. Her own income, her own identity, built upon the ruins of mine. Thomas told her the offer would stand. It was a threat, a promise that my erasure was permanent. As she left my building, I imagined her feeling hope. Her bright future was a shadow cast by my eclipse. Her prosperity was paid for with my blood. I saw Jake drive her away in the quiet of a completed coup. They were processing their victory. My career was a casualty. My freedom, a negotiation. My future, a pile of ash. And Emma had a path to rebuild on my scorched earth. They probably asked how she felt. Like she could finally breathe, I am sure, because she had finally suffocated me. She would tell our child that her mother was a fighter. She would not tell her that she fought to destroy her father. So, I would go to prison. A plea bargain, 3 to 5 years, for protecting my assets, for making difficult choices. Vanessa would get 2 years, for loyalty. Emma would nod with her sad, perfect face. She never wanted to destroy my life. She would lie. She only wanted me to stop destroying hers. But I built her life. I gave her everything. She chose to burn it all down when she found a rival for my attention. My money was for us. My mistress was a weakness, I admit. But it was not a crime. My crime was getting caught. The child kicked. A response to her mother's victory. That is the story she would tell. She was celebrating. And Emma would laugh. A sound I had not heard in a long time. A sound that now felt like a curse. She would ask Jake how long he planned it. The investigation, the betrayal, the careful demolition of my life. And he would be quiet for a moment. He would speak of the night she called him. When he saw what Vanessa had done, he would not mention Emma's provocations. He would say he saw a war. And in his war, he used any weapon. He turned my own security against me. A client, I was his client. But he would twist it. He was protecting his sister. His niece, I stopped being his client when I became inconvenient. He saw me as a threat to his family. I saw him as the man who tore mine apart. Emma would squeeze his hand. Thank you, she would say, for believing me, for protecting us, for making sure justice was served. Justice. They called this justice. He would tell her she was strong. He would say a year ago she would have accepted my truth. Now she demanded her own. Her daughter would be proud. As she walked into my house, our house, she felt peace. The weight of her betrayal settled comfortably on her shoulders. The man who trusted her was facing a cage. The woman who stood by me was in custody. The company I built was paying my executioner. And she and the baby were safe. They were secure. They were surrounded by the scavengers who had helped bring me down. Her phone would buzz. A message from her doctor, checking on her, as if she were the patient here, as if she were the one who was wounded. "We are doing better," she would type. She would settle into my chair. The one I hated. She was looking forward to tomorrow. Of course she was. Tomorrow she would wake up in my house without me in it. Tomorrow she would make decisions for the company I founded. She would protect her reputation, not mine. Tomorrow she would build a life she wanted. Over the wreckage of the life we had, the baby would kick, and she would whisper to it, "Just you and me. We are going to be fine. We are going to be happy." Outside, the snake sat in his truck, making sure his sister was secure in her stolen castle before he left. His phone would ring. The detective, Reynolds. He would hear the news about my plea deal. 3 years for one charge, 2 for another. Parole in 18 months. 18 months to plan. And Vanessa, 2 years. A complication with her pregnancy, the stress. She might lose the baby. A flicker of annoyance, another loose end. Another problem they had created, the civil case, was next. Emma would get but a settlement, a consulting contract. My stock would pay for everything. My life's work reduced to her severance package. So, it is over. For now. But I was already making statements about the appeal, about fighting, about proving that Emma orchestrated this entire tragedy. A revenge fantasy for a lonely wife. Jake's jaw would tighten. He knew I would not go quietly. He knew the evidence was a story they wrote, a very convincing story, but a story nonetheless. Men like me do not fade away. He would end the call. He would look at my house one last time. He would see the lights on in the nursery. He would see her moving inside, preparing for a life without me. But he was wrong. I was not gone. I had made mistakes. I had trusted the wrong people. I had underestimated my wife. These were not crimes. They were errors in judgment. And Emma was not the woman I married. She was someone else now, a mother, a survivor, a killer of dreams. She believed strength and integrity mattered. I knew only winning mattered, and I had lost this round. But I had not lost everything. I had not lost the truth of her betrayal, the truth of their conspiracy. That was a truth no jail cell could ever hold. A few months later, Emma Catherine Morrison, she even stole my name. She held the child in a chair he had built. In the room I had paid for, she had changed their names, erasing me, erasing The child was a miracle, they said. With my wife's hair and my enemy's chin. She is beautiful, Jake would say. Absolutely perfect. Emma would look at the baby and feel a peace she had never known with me. The past 3 months were a victory lap for her. Legal proceedings, single motherhood. The most authentic months of her life, she would call them, because they were lived without me. The baby was fine. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and my stubborn streak, she would joke. Her father's stubborn streak, Jake would reply, as if he had any right to speak of me. He would ask about her meeting at my company, and she would smile. They offered her a position, Director of Strategic Development. My title, my vision, my future. Now it was hers. The lawyer's voice is a dull hum. Emma is working at my company now, at my desk, with my clients, taking my place. She has Jake. He is in my house, with my wife. It is a theft of my entire life, a quiet, systematic erasure. I told my lawyer to make the request. I have a right to see Grace. She is my blood, my child, not theirs. They cannot take her from me, not forever. They will allow one call, supervised, recorded, as if I am some animal. I must prove I can be a better person. I will play their little game. I will perform repentance. I will say all the right words. Let them think they are winning. Let them believe they have broken me. But inside, I am planning. I am waiting. Grace is my daughter. She is the only thing that matters now. I will not let them poison her against me. My mother. I think of her often in this gray place. She always understood ambition. She knew that greatness required hard choices. She would defend me. She would see that I did what was necessary. She would never believe their lies. Emma could never turn my own mother against me. That is one bond they cannot break. She is my last ally in a world that has turned on me. This I believe. The lawyer brings news, a visit, not to me, to Emma. My mother went to my home, and she apologized. For me, for raising me this way. She called my ambition a flaw. She called my strength a sickness. The words echo in the silence of my cell. The last pillar of my world has crumbled. My own mother has condemned me. I am utterly and completely alone. I can see it in my mind. My mother, holding my child. Jake, standing in the doorway, like the man of the house. They are a family, A new family built upon my ashes. They are happy. They are perfect. And I am the monster in a story they tell themselves. The villain they defeated. The ghost they have already forgotten. My daughter will grow up hearing this story. She gave her the ring, my grandmother's ring. I remember it. An old, useless thing. I bought Emma something modern, something worthy of her. My mother said I was wrong. Wrong about the ring. Wrong about everything. Her words are a poison. I am nothing but a collection of mistakes, a series of wrong choices. But I made this company. I made my fortune. That was not wrong. It could not be. They say Emma is thriving, recovering, free from the stress of my betrayal. My lies were a cage. Now she is free, and I am here, in a cage of my own. Did I do that? Did my pursuit of a better life destroy the only good thing in it? The thought is a splinter of glass in my mind. I see her smiling, happy without me, stronger because I am gone. The lawyer mentions Emma might date again. Someone new, someone who will love Grace, someone who will be a father to my daughter. The image is a fire that consumes me. Another man in my place, erasing me completely. I see the years stretching out, empty, meaningless. They took everything. It was not my fault. It was their greed, their weakness, their betrayal. I will never believe otherwise. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.